There are moments in history that last only a few seconds, yet somehow they outlive entire generations. A single photograph, a single smile, a single gust of wind. That was all it took to create one of the most recognizable images the world has ever seen. Even people who have never watched a Marilyn Monroe movie can instantly recognize the white dress floating above a New York subway grate. The image became larger than the film itself, larger than Hollywood, larger than the woman standing inside it. But what the cameras captured was only the surface. They captured beauty. They captured glamour. They captured laughter. What they did not capture was the pressure, the exhaustion, the expectations, and the personal cost hidden behind those unforgettable seconds. Because long before the photograph became immortal, there was simply another filming day, a day that nobody expected would become one of the defining moments in entertainment history.
To understand why that night mattered so much, we have to step back.
By the middle of the 1950s, Marilyn Monroe had already become one of the brightest stars in Hollywood. Her journey had been anything but ordinary. Born as Norma Jean Mortensen, she experienced instability almost from the beginning of her life. She spent much of her childhood moving between foster homes and orphanages, searching for the security that many children take for granted. Those early experiences shaped her deeply. They taught her how fragile happiness could be. They also gave her an extraordinary determination to build a different future. When she entered the world of modeling, very few people imagined that the quiet young woman with platinum blonde hair would one day become the face of an entire generation. Hollywood noticed her almost immediately. Studios recognized something difficult to describe. It was not simply beauty. Hollywood was already filled with beautiful actresses. There was something different about Marilyn. She possessed a rare ability to make the camera fall in love with her. Whenever she appeared on screen, audiences felt as if she were speaking directly to them. Her smile seemed effortless. Her movements looked natural. Even the smallest expression carried warmth and charm. That unique connection quickly transformed her into one of the studio system's most valuable stars. Film after film strengthened her popularity. Audiences filled theaters. Magazine covers competed to feature her face. Photographers followed her almost everywhere she went. Reporters carefully documented every appearance. The public wanted to know everything about her: what she wore, where she traveled, who she loved, what she said. Fame surrounded her every hour of every day. But fame is often deceptive. The world usually sees confidence. Very few people notice insecurity. The world celebrates success. Very few people recognize loneliness.
Behind the dazzling public image was a woman who worked relentlessly to improve herself. She studied acting seriously. She wanted directors and critics to respect her as an actress, rather than viewing her only as a glamorous celebrity. She constantly searched for opportunities to prove that she was capable of much more than the roles people expected her to play. Despite the endless attention, Marilyn often questioned herself. She worried about whether audiences truly appreciated her talent. She feared becoming trapped inside an image that no longer represented who she wanted to become. Those private struggles remained almost invisible. The public saw perfection. Marilyn felt pressure. By the summer of 1954, she was preparing to film a romantic comedy that would eventually become one of the most famous movies of her career. Its title was The 7-Year Itch. The story itself centered around temptation, fantasy, and everyday relationships, told with humor rather than drama. One particular scene appeared surprisingly simple on paper. The screenplay described Marilyn's character standing over a subway ventilation grate while a passing train forced air upward beneath her dress. She would laugh. She would hold the dress down. The audience would smile.
It seemed like nothing more than a light-hearted comedic moment. No one involved could fully predict how legendary that brief sequence would become. Director Billy Wilder understood visual storytelling better than almost anyone working in Hollywood. He knew that memorable cinema often came from simple ideas executed perfectly. Rather than filming the moment entirely inside a studio, he wanted authenticity. He wanted the real streets of New York, the genuine atmosphere, the sounds, the energy, the unpredictable life that existed outside controlled film sets. That decision would change everything.
News traveled quickly across Manhattan. One rumor spread through office buildings, restaurants, newspaper offices, and sidewalks. Marilyn Monroe was filming in New York. People became curious, then excited, then determined to witness the event for themselves. Throughout the afternoon, more spectators quietly gathered near the filming location. Some came because they admired Marilyn. Others came simply because they wanted to witness a Hollywood production. Professional photographers recognized that an outdoor filming session featuring the world's biggest female star represented an extraordinary opportunity. Many arrived carrying heavy cameras, hoping to capture a unique image before anyone else. As daylight slowly faded into evening, the crowd continued growing. Workers finishing their shifts stopped instead of heading home. Tourists changed their plans. Taxi drivers slowed their vehicles. Passers-by joined the gathering simply because they noticed everyone else looking in the same direction. Without realizing it, hundreds of strangers were becoming witnesses to history. The film crew noticed the growing audience. Equipment had to be protected. Cables stretched across the pavement. Large lights illuminated the street. Assistants coordinated movement between crew members. Sound technicians prepared their equipment. Camera operators carefully checked every lens. Everyone focused on performing another routine night of filmmaking. Marilyn eventually arrived wearing a simple white halter dress designed specifically for the scene. Elegant, flowing, bright enough to reflect the powerful movie lights. At first glance, it looked like just another costume. No one standing there could possibly know that this dress would one day become one of the most famous pieces of clothing in popular culture. Marilyn greeted members of the crew warmly. Despite carrying the enormous expectations of being Hollywood's biggest star, she remained professional throughout the preparations. She listened carefully to Billy Wilder's instructions. The movements required precise timing. She would step onto the subway grate, wait, feel the rush of air, react naturally, smile, then continue the scene. Simple. At least, that was the plan. As final adjustments continued, the excitement among the crowd became almost impossible to contain. People whispered to one another. Some climbed onto nearby objects for a better view. Photographers checked their cameras repeatedly. Every person understood they were about to watch Marilyn Monroe perform only a few feet away. No one knew that within moments, a single image would begin a journey across the entire world. The lights were ready. The cameras stood perfectly still. The crew fell silent. Billy Wilder looked toward Marilyn. She smiled confidently. Then came the words every actor waits to hear. Action. The city itself seemed to hold its breath. For a brief instant, everything stood perfectly still. The conversations faded. The traffic noise seemed distant. Even the restless energy of New York appeared to pause. Every eye was fixed on one woman, standing above a simple subway ventilation grate. Marilyn Monroe smiled naturally, exactly as Billy Wilder had instructed. She looked relaxed, confident, completely unaware that the next few seconds would become the defining image of her entire career. Beneath the street, the rumble of an approaching subway train slowly grew louder.
At first, it was only a faint vibration beneath everyone's feet. Then the sound became impossible to ignore. The steel wheels echoed through the underground tunnel. Crew members remained silent. Camera operators held their breath. Photographers tightened their grip on their cameras. The anticipation became almost unbearable. Then it happened. A powerful burst of air rushed upward through the metal grate. The flowing white skirt suddenly lifted into the air.
Marilyn reacted exactly as the scene required. She laughed. She reached down with both hands, trying to hold the dress in place while keeping her balance. The reaction looked effortless, natural, playful. It lasted only a few seconds, but those few seconds were enough. The crowd exploded into applause. Cheers echoed across the street. People laughed with excitement. Some spectators whistled. Others simply stared in amazement. The photographers responded instantly. Flashbulbs burst one after another. Click, flash, click, flash. The sound of camera shutters filled the night. Every photographer understood that something extraordinary was unfolding before their eyes. No one wanted to miss a single expression, a single movement, a single smile. Every fraction of a second mattered. Billy Wilder watched carefully from behind the camera. He knew the timing had been good, but he wanted another take. He calmly called for the crew to reset. Marilyn returned to her starting position. She adjusted the skirt of her dress, smiled toward the crew, and prepared to perform the scene again. The subway train approached once more. Again, the rush of air lifted the white dress. Again, Marilyn laughed naturally. Again, the cameras erupted. Each new take attracted even more attention. People passing through the neighborhood stopped walking. Drivers slowed their cars to see what was happening. Office workers leaving nearby buildings joined the growing audience. Within a short time, hundreds of spectators surrounded the filming location. Police officers struggled to keep clear pathways for the production crew. The atmosphere no longer resembled an ordinary film set. It felt more like a public celebration. Marilyn remained remarkably professional despite the enormous attention. She greeted members of the crew between takes. She laughed with photographers. She listened carefully whenever Billy Wilder offered another direction. Although surrounded by thousands of curious eyes, she never appeared impatient. She understood that filmmaking often required repeating even the simplest scene many times before everything looked perfect. Yet not every face in the crowd reflected excitement. Standing among the spectators was Marilyn's husband, Joe DiMaggio. Unlike everyone around him, he remained almost completely silent. He watched every repetition of the scene, every burst of applause, every camera flash, every cheer from the crowd. His expression gradually changed. The excitement surrounding the scene clearly troubled him. What thousands of strangers viewed as harmless entertainment felt very different from where he stood. The growing public reaction only intensified those emotions. Meanwhile, the photographers continued working without pause. Many climbed onto nearby objects for a better angle. Others crouched low to capture the movement of the dress against the bright movie lights. Every new flash illuminated Marilyn's face. Every new photograph preserved another fraction of a second. No one present could know which single image would eventually become famous around the world. As the night continued, Billy Wilder reviewed the material that had been captured. The visual performance was exactly what he had hoped for. Marilyn's expressions felt spontaneous. The movement of the dress looked unforgettable. The audience's energy had given the scene a life that could never have been recreated inside a studio. However, the enormous crowd had created an unexpected problem. The constant cheering, laughter, whistles, and camera noise overwhelmed the production sound. Recording clean dialogue had become nearly impossible. Despite the spectacular public response, the location audio could not be used for the finished motion picture.
Eventually, Billy Wilder decided the outdoor filming had accomplished everything it could. The crew began shutting down the lights.
Assistants carefully packed the cameras. Electrical cables disappeared from the street. Police slowly encouraged the crowd to move along. One by one, spectators returned to their ordinary lives, believing they had simply watched a Hollywood actress film a memorable scene. Very few realized they had witnessed the birth of one of the most iconic images in cinema history. As Marilyn stepped away from the subway grate, she smiled politely at the remaining fans before leaving the set. Behind her, photographers hurried to develop their photographs. Editors across the country had no idea that by the following morning, one image from that warm New York night would begin appearing on front pages, magazine covers, and newspaper stands around the world. The filming had ended, but the story of that white dress had only just begun. Cameras eventually stopped rolling. The bright movie lights were switched off. The crowd slowly disappeared into the streets of New York. To everyone standing there, it had been an exciting evening. A famous actress, a playful movie scene, a few unforgettable photographs. Then, life moved on. Or at least, that is what everyone believed. By the following morning, those photographs had already begun their journey across America. Newspapers rushed to publish them. Magazine editors immediately recognized that they were looking at something extraordinary. Photo agencies distributed the images across the country, and within a remarkably short time, they had crossed international borders. The world had found a new symbol. People were no longer talking only about the 7-year itch. They were talking about Marilyn Monroe. The image spread with astonishing speed. It appeared in newspapers, on magazine covers, in advertisements, inside photography collections. Over the years, it would be reproduced in books, documentaries, museums, and exhibitions dedicated to Hollywood history. It became one of the most recognizable photographs ever taken of a motion picture star. Ironically, the scene that made history was never remembered because of complicated dialogue or dramatic acting. It was remembered because of a single, spontaneous visual moment. A white dress, a subway grate, a passing train. Sometimes, history needs nothing more. Yet behind the worldwide admiration, Marilyn continued searching for something far more valuable than fame. She wanted to be respected as an actress. She studied seriously. She worked with acting coaches. She challenged herself with more demanding roles and sought greater creative control over her career. She understood that beauty could make someone famous, but talent was what she wanted people to remember. Despite all of her success, public attention never truly slowed. Every appearance became news. Every relationship attracted headlines. Every decision was analyzed by millions of strangers. The same fame that opened countless doors also made privacy almost impossible. The photograph that brought endless admiration also became a reminder that one unforgettable moment could follow a person for the rest of their life. Years became decades. Hollywood changed. Black and white cinema gave way to color. New generations of actors became stars. Entire eras of filmmaking came and went. Technology transformed the entertainment industry in ways no one could have imagined during that warm New York evening. But one image refused to disappear. Long after many classic films had faded from public memory, Marilyn Monroe's white dress continued to symbolize the glamour of Hollywood's golden age. It became more than a publicity photograph. It became part of popular culture itself. Artists referenced it, photographers recreated it, fashion designers celebrated it, film historians analyzed it, museums preserved it, and audiences, generation after generation, continued to recognize it instantly. Today, even people who have never watched a Marilyn Monroe film often know that single photograph.
It has become one of the rare images that transcended the movie it came from. That is the remarkable power of an iconic moment. It can outlive the cameras that captured it. It can outlive the newspapers that first published it. Sometimes, it can even outlive the people who created it. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: history is rarely changed by the moments we expect. It is often shaped by the moments that seem ordinary while they are happening. On that summer night in New York, the film crew believed they were simply completing another scene. The photographers believed they were capturing another celebrity. The crowd believed they were watching another movie production. No one knew they were witnessing a moment that would define Hollywood for generations.
A passing subway train, a gentle burst of air, a white dress caught by the wind. Only a few unforgettable seconds. Yet those seconds would travel farther than anyone standing on that street could have imagined. Some photographs record history. Others become history. And on that unforgettable night in New York, Marilyn Monroe gave the world a moment that time itself could never erase.